So you're thinking about buying your very first house. Maybe you're finding yourself a little bit stressed out as to the process, which is okay. That's just your brain doing what it's supposed to do. I mean, you're about to be loaned more money than your grandparents made their entire lives. But I'm here to share with you the 5 biggest mistakes that I've seen first-time home buyers and even seasoned home buyers make. So hopefully you can avoid these pitfalls and speed up the process to get where you want to be. Number 1, knowing who's on your side. Now, it may seem obvious at first, but you got to remember, there's a lot of people in the middle of a real estate transaction who benefit from you buying a home. You know, we're looking at your buyer's agent, the listing agent, appraiser, inspector, the lender, and that's just to get the transaction done. And then after that, you've got contractors, home insurance. There's a lot of people who are incentivized to make sure that you get into a house. So how do you know who you can trust? Likely the first person you're going to reach out to is going to be a buyer's agent who's going to help guide you through this entire process. And yes, I am going to highly recommend it. Why? Well, you don't actually pay the buyer's agent directly. So when you're looking at a house, it might be $400,000. You know, whether or not you have a buyer's agent, you're going to pay $400,000 for that house. So you're better off having legal representation by a buyer's agent who has what they call a fiduciary duty. What that essentially means is that they must place your priorities over the priorities of everybody else in that transaction and act upon your best interest and your best interest alone during the entire transaction. So does that solve every problem out there? Absolutely not. But at least you have it in writing, right? Because the listing agent is trying to get as much as possible for the house. They're going to tell you whatever they have to get you to buy a house. A lot of states are buyer beware states, like they are here in Colorado, for example. You do your home inspections and you buy based on the information that you are able to gather on a specific property. You know, home inspectors paid a flat fee per inspection. So if you hire them to do 4 inspections on 4 different houses, they don't care. They'll just keep doing them for you. An appraiser is hired by the bank. So essentially they work for the bank, and that also that you pay for is a one-time flat fee. The lender is incentivized to make sure that the deal gets closed because they typically get paid 1 to 3% of the purchase price upon your closing of the property. So just like the buyer's agent, just like the listing agent and the lender, none of them are getting paid unless you actually buy a property. Make sure that these people that you're working with, especially the lender and the buyer's agent, come from either strong referrals or have just a great track record, because at the end of the day, you're roughly paying 8 to 10% of your purchase price is going to other people. Okay, so the average price right now in the U.S. is a little bit under $400,000. Well, between the buyer's agent, listing agent, lender, appraiser, inspectors, you're going to pay approximately 9% of the purchase price. Now, that's going to be tied into your loan. Most of it doesn't come out of pocket, but you got to remember that there's an awful lot of middlemen in real estate, so it's easy to get sidetracked by somebody. And feel free, if you are a homeowner, drop a comment below of the biggest mistake that you've made while buying a property. Number 2, budgeting based on your pre-approval alone. Remember, everybody's incentivized to make sure that the deal gets done. So your pre-approval is going to be approved for typically the maximum amount that you can afford. Now, this isn't the same for every lender out there, but in general, they come up with your pre-approval amount by taking 50% of your gross income minus what your debts are. So let's say you make $5,000 a month, and maybe you have a credit card payment and you've got a car payment, and they total up $500. So $5,000 divided by 2 or times 50% is $2,500. You've got $500 a month in other debts to pay. So you're likely going to be pre-approved for $2,000 a month, depending on down payment. And there's all other sorts of factors there. So if you're a W-2 employee, which most people are, us business owners, banks don't want to give money to us anyways because they just have a hard time proving it. I mean, you could make $40,000 a year as a W-2 employee and get approved for 3 times as much as a self-employed person making $200,000 a year with a track record of 5 years. It's just how it is. Just accept it. But if you're a W-2 employee and you're making $5,000 a month in taxes, let's say your take home is approximately $4,000 a month. And then you've got $500 of expenses for other debts coming out of that, not including groceries and gas and all that other stuff. So you're actually getting $3,500, and now you're approved for $2,000. So that's actually more than 50% of what your take home is. Now they do have to calculate in mortgage insurance and homeowners insurance and property taxes. So there's a few other things that need to be calculated into that. But once again, those are the rough general numbers. So you should know what you're comfortable with paying each and every month so you don't become house poor. I take it back to a lot of the investors I've worked with, right? So when a bank loans you money on a property that you're going to buy to rent out, right? They're going to want 25% down minimally. When you're buying a primary residence, you can put down as little as 3.5% with an FHA loan, 5% with a conventional loan, 20% gets you out of paying that PMI, which is another couple $100 a month, which is mortgage insurance. So the less you can put down, the more they charge you for it. Kind of makes sense. Not really. What they want to see from investors, and the reason why is because they want to make sure that their investment is secure. They want to see 6 months of reserves or $12,000 sitting there in a checking or savings account. It's a little bit of a buffer to make sure that their investment is protected, and they require that for all investment purchases. Now, I think the same thing should be true for you as a home buyer. So if your monthly mortgage payment is going to be $1,500 a month, having $9,000 aside for unexpected things after you close, because let's face it, you're going to go through the home inspection, you're going to pay $800 for that, and then 2 months later, the water heater is going to crap out on you. It's just going to happen. Something is going to come up sooner than you expected, and you shouldn't let it catch you off guard. Number 3, trying to time the market. You know, we've all got our Uncle Buck who claims to be a financial wizard, yet pulls up in a 1978 broken down Pontiac at Thanksgiving. We all have those people in our lives. But the reality is that no matter how much money they make, cannot predict what the market is going to do. I mean, we've really only had a few years in the last 75 years of our country's history have real estate prices actually declined. The goal on buying a house in most markets in the U.S. should be to hold it for more than that 5 to 7 year period. We've been in a really long stretch over the last, 15 years where real estate prices have gone up extremely aggressively. In most states, more than 6 to 7% a year for the last 15 years. Now, what's going to happen over the next 15 years? Are we going to see that same appreciation? I think we'd be hard-pressed for anybody to agree with that. But anything's possible. I'm wrong all the time in this business. I'll be the first to admit it. But there is something that you can time, and that is simply the seasonality of your market. And what I mean by that is most markets have appreciation for X amount of months, and then they have a little bit of a flat top, and then they have depreciation of a few percent. And in some of the markets I know best, it's easy to make the claim that, hey, we had 8 to 10% appreciation during the spring months from about the end of February until about the middle of May, but then all the way until about November, prices slowly decline by about 5 to 7%. So year over year, the prices are up 3 to 5%, but the seasonality of when buyers are entering the market, when more sellers are entering the market is something you have control over. So I would highly urge you to study your market, ask your buyer's agent for that seasonality of buyers and sellers. So if you feel like you need a deal on a house or your significant other will only buy a house if they're getting a deal on it, that's absolutely your best chance. Number 4 is an easy one, but I'm going to yell at you right now because I promise you 90% of you have already done this. And that's looking at houses before you're actually pre-approved. Stop it. Stop it right now. This is what's going to happen. This is what always happens is you're going to go out and start looking at houses in person versus just tootling around online, and you're going to fall in love with something. And one of two things is going to happen. Either A, you're going to find out you can't afford it, or B, it's going to be gone before you're actually pre-approved and ready to put in an offer. It happens all the time. Just go get your pre-approval while you're thinking about it. There's no harm in doing it. Yeah, they do have to do a credit pull, but just make sure you don't have a bunch of other credit pulls in the last couple of months and you'll be fine. Number 5, not actually buying a starter house or condo. You know, I see it all too often where dreams are big, hopes are big, and maybe you make good money. Maybe you're in your mid-30s, which is about the rough age for the first-time home buyer these days because of what prices have done over the last 30 to 40 years. And so you're at a different point in your life than maybe you were in your early 20s. So you want that 4-bedroom, 3-bath house on an acre, that's maybe at the top of your price range. Maybe you're looking in the upper end of what your city has. But what I'm going to tell you is that there's a very good chance you don't know what you want in a house yet. Is a 1-car garage fine, or do you absolutely need a 2-car garage, attached or detached? Is it 4 bedrooms that you need, or is it 2 bedrooms and an office? Have you ever lived in a house with 3 bathrooms before? It takes an awfully long time to clean 3 bathrooms every single week. Have you ever lived in a 3,000 square foot home with wall-to-wall carpeting? Do you have a $1,200 vacuum to go with that house? I mean, there's a lot of things that you may not know about what you want out of a house yet. So buying the 2-bedroom, 1-bath home that's under your budget, right? Buying the townhouse or condo so you don't have exterior maintenance to think about yet might be a better decision than going for the top of your budget. And now I can hear you now yelling at me, but I don't want to live in that part of town. I don't want to live in a 2-bedroom house. Well, great. You don't have to forever. That's why they have move-up houses. There used to be a natural progression of homeowners that would go from starter houses or condos into a move-up house and then to potentially their forever home, right? Once they're empty nesters. And we don't seem to have that progression much anymore. Here's your pro tip. Don't sell the house when you're ready to move. That's my number one advice for any home buyer out there, is try to plan your life with never having to sell a house, because it is literally the number one wealth generator that our parents' parents have ever seen. Real estate has made more millionaires than any other industry. So what you do is, while you're living at the house you may not want to live in for more than a few years, is keep saving your money, figure out what it is you want out of a house. Do you want a ranch with a basement? Do you really hate stairs and just want all one level living? Do you love 2 stories? Do you want a pool? Figure all that stuff out, save your money, and then when it's time to purchase that new house, rent out your first house. If you can cash flow even a few $100s a month, which you should have a few $100s a month in cash flow to cover things like repairs and maintenance. Someone else is going to be paying you rent, which means someone else is essentially paying your mortgage on that house. So save up another 5% for the house you want, rent out your first house, and it's very likely that that initial down payment that you paid on that first house will make you 12 to 15% return on your investment year after year after year, calculating in depreciation, tax benefits, appreciation, someone else paying down your mortgage. I mean, there's a reason why the richest people in this country own lots of real estate. All the laws were written for real estate ownership, so you might as well play the game with them. And if you're wondering how much house you can actually afford, watch this video. It'll answer all your questions.